I sit listening to another of Muto's long-winded lectures, my mind wandering far from the scribbles on the dirty blackboard. Since I called Lily, my mind's been drawn in two directions, both roughly leading to the same conclusion. I've started to feel oddly detached from my past life. It's only been a month and a half since I arrived here, yet this school's become a second home. I've gained new friends and contacts, managed to get to grips with the school's lifestyle and culture, and become accustomed to the quirks of my classmates. To become used to a school where disabilities are the norm rather than the rare exception still catches me off guard sometimes when I think on it. The same school that's populated by burn victims, amputees, the blind, the deaf, and all manner of disabilities in between. If someone had described the school to me before I'd come, I'd have shrugged it off as an overactive imagination. Even when I first arrived, I felt like the Dutch coming to the strange new land for the first time. That's an interesting metaphor. It's amazing how quickly one becomes used to an environment they're forced to live in, really. And now I've even found someone that's gotten me entirely smitten. What a strange life. Before my mind can wander any further, though, I find a page of lined paper slipped under my distracted face. The garish bright pink ink has no doubt been penned by Misha. Don't look so bored, Hee-chan. School's nearly over. 3-day holiday. That is pretty great. All right, we get Saturday and Monday off. Can't complain about having less school, I suppose. I uncap my pen and scribble on the page before covertly passing it back to her, flicking my eyes to the front of the class every now and then. Muto continues scrawling away arcane equations and formulas on the board. I'm guessing you have something planned? Misha takes the paper back and hunches over it comically, even for her, with her tongue poking through the side of her mouth. Did she misinterpret my expression as depressed, and is she trying to cheer me up? Student council work with Hee-chan, of course. You're not still brooding over that, surely. Both Hee-chan, but Hee-chan could have helped us. Poor lonely girls. I'd lend you a hand for today if I weren't going to be busy. Oh, naughty, naughty Hee-chan. What's that supposed to mean? I'm just gonna meet Lily with Hanako. I don't know what you got going through your head. And your big old trillies. So Lily's back? Yeah, she's coming on the evening flight with her sister, so she'll be back in school next week. As she takes the note back and begins to write, I look up to see an unwelcome sight. While I frantically try to silently catch Misha's attention, Muto confidently strides through the gap between the desks from the front of the class, and intent gaze focused directly on her. She suddenly stops writing as the tall figure casts an impossibly long shadow over the page. He silently takes the piece of paper from her and begins to read. Sweating bullets, I quickly glance around the class, noting their complete silence. Of course, it would have just have to be one thing that actually gets their attention during the class. After a scant few seconds examining the page, he rolls the paper up in a small tube and lightly bops Misha over the head with it. Half an hour until you can hop off to the student council. I think you can hold on until then. Misha's face cracks as the entire class erupts into laughter. He might well be awkward, but he knows how to handle her excellently. I'd probably feel sorry for her if I wasn't busy stifling my own laughter. Good times. Is that one it? No, I think that's some foreign airline. It's actually called Foreign Airline. Who knows how they got that name? And so the third aircraft they come on, not on, comes on to land. For the past half hour, we've been whiling away at the time with small snippets of pointless chatter. Lily and Akira's flights have been delayed, and at this rate, it'll probably be dark before their plane arrives. So life's hard all over, man. Is that one it? No, the company colors are wrong. Hanako's eyes flutter left and right, following the trickle of people in and out of the huge glass doors ahead of us. Fortunately, nobody pays her much heed, their attention apparently directed towards greater things. Maybe that one is it? No, I think that's... Hold on a minute, I think that one might be it after all. It wasn't. It takes some time more before the billboard changes their flight status to disembarking. A loud yawn sneaks up on me, not allowing enough time to stifle it. My sleep patterns have, once again, been all over the place, likely due to a mix of worrying about Hanako and the side effects of my medications. Isao, over there! Look over to Hanako, then follow her gaze to the airport door. Oh, Lily, they're here. Really? What, did you think we wouldn't be? We all call out to each other in greeting, quickly shuffling over to the side to avoid blocking the passage of others. Lily! Aw, that's cute. Hugs are nice. Hanako jumps forward to hug Lily, a wide smile on her face being all that's needed to see her happiness at Lily's return. Lily simply smiles in return, her voice soft. It's wonderful to meet you again, Hanako. As the two give each other a hug, well-deserved after all that's happened while she was gone, I turned to Akira. Yo, you're pretty late. Yeah, there was a really bad storm over the airport. We got drenched just going from the car to the door. I guess you'll appreciate the weather here more then. Welcome back to you too, Lily. Hanako breaks off from Lily as I speak. For a long time, neither of us says a word. Contrary to what I thought her homecoming would be like, this atmosphere feels awkward, almost stifling. Both of us try to guess each other's feelings, not quite sure what should be said. Damn, this is exactly what I feared when I thought of trying to move things forward between us. Lily runs her hand through her fair hair and awkwardly twirls one of her bangs in her finger, clearly trying to think of how best to react. Eventually, thankfully, Lily gives a small sigh and breaks the silence. Thank you, Hisao. It's nice to be back. Are you okay? You look tired. Evidently not recollecting herself at all that well, she quickly waves her hand in front of her face to stave off any concern Hanako may have over her. I'm okay, really. It's just a bit of jet lag. Weak. You don't have any? She simply gives a big grin, puffing out her modest chest. I feel absolutely fine. That's not fair. Oh well, you shouldn't take too long to get rid of it. That's right, Hisao? Yeah? Don't we have a holiday from school soon? I'd forgotten if Misha hadn't reminded me this morning. We got a 3-day weekend starting from tomorrow. Akira playfully bumps her elbow lightly into Lily's side, grinning. Told you wouldn't miss it. You have something planned? If neither you nor Hanako are busy, I've got no plans, or something to do would be appreciated. So something to do would be appreciated. Hanako? No, nothing. That's good. I was thinking we could go to my family's summer house for a bit of quiet over the break. We've rarely used it recently, though, so we'd have to dust things off a little while we're there. Oh? Where is it? Up north in Hokkaido, or Hokkaido, who knows? I'm gonna go with Hokkaido. The place is practically deserted, so it might be a nice quiet break for you guys. You're not coming? Nah, I got a little holiday of my own set up with my boyfriend. I lower my eyes at her, suspicious of her intentions. It sounds like we're just cleaning up the summer house for you. That's perhaps a valid conclusion. Both of us zero in on Akira, her face somewhat evasive. Looks like we were right. That's just a convenient bonus, really. I mean, the guy left it in pretty good condition last we were there, I promise. Now then, I'm out of here. Already? Akira. She quickly turns and walks away, her hand held high. See you in a few days, guys. Lily and I can only sigh at her hasty retreat. It does sound like it would be a nice place to go. Lily gives an enthusiastic nod, taking her carry bag in one hand and placing her other on Hanako's shoulder for guidance as we begin to make our way to the taxi area. After the fracas of the past few days, spending a weekend in the country alone with her and Hanako sounds like a dream. The more I think about it, the more sure I am. This will be the right time and place to confess my feelings to her. Well, that does definitely sound like the case. You got my support. We're all counting on you. Good luck. The morning chill wraps itself around my shivering body. I huff into my cupped hands to desperately try and stave off the cold as we mill about the station platform. Lily's clothing looks rather ill-suited for the temperature around us. I can only hope it's indicative of what she expects the weather to be like at our destination. Damn it, Lily. Why'd we have to get here so early? Unfortunately, the train schedule is against us. The next train to Hokkaido is at 2 in the afternoon. Great, just great. I pause a moment to wipe some sleep out of my eyes, and Lily promptly takes advantage of the opening. Cheer up, Hisao. Once we get there, it'll be much warmer. Why not just take the bullet train? The normal train's gonna take hours to get us there, so we may as well take the Shikasen line as far north as it goes, just switch at the end. There's a certain charm to older trains, wouldn't you agree? I'd agree if I weren't freezing in the morning cold because we decided to take one. I'm sorry, Hisao. Sorry, what for? I was the one who suggested taking a normal train. Way to make me feel guilty! All I can do is sigh and cover my face with my hand. It's fine, I'm just grumbling. My, Hanako. You needn't shoulder all the blame yourself. Even without your suggestion, I'd still have opted for the same thing. Thankfully, for the quick interception from Lily, I take a quick gander around the station. Aside from us, the train platform's all but deserted. The morning dew settling on the empty benches. I guess no one else was masochistic enough to brave the very early morning. Though, if someone was, they'd be more noticeable. They'd more than notice the huge bags both Lily and Hanako brought with them. Just what did you have to pack in those things anyway? The bags? Oh. She pauses a moment and tilts her head in thought. Oop, a change of clothing, raincoat, underwear, sleepwear, a number of books. I think that's most of it. Make it sound as if I'm unprepared. You brought less? Underwear and a pack of cards, that's it. And my pills, but never mind that. No pajamas? Damn, I knew I forgot something. As I ruffle my hair in frustration, Lily sighs. There should be clothes you could use there. Akira still occasionally goes there after all, and I think some of our parents' clothing is still in storage. I don't think there'll be any problem of you borrowing a set of pajamas if need be. Thanks. Still, I don't mind just sleeping in my normal clothing. For 2 days? Good point. Not really, though. Those 2 days would be borderline. It's more that looking even a little like a slob would be unacceptable in the presence of 2 girls. Two incredibly pretty girls. Come on now. You gotta have a good impression, man. And for someone like Lily, smell's gonna be a thing, man. As we leisurely talk on the station platform, an announcement sounds from the loudspeakers, loudly heralding our ride's arrival. Looking past Lily and Hanako, though, the train's still well out of sight. A quick check of my watch is enough to see that it's the one we'll be taking. The 5:30 train was ours, right? Correct. Either of you want to take your bags? Mine's not exactly heavy. My, that's very gentlemanly of you, Hisao. Don't accept too reluctantly now. As I bend down to pick up Lily's large bag, I look up to see Hanako picking up hers. You fine with that? A silent nod's the only answer. I'm starting to get the feeling that by the trip's end, I'll be able to count every sentence she said on one hand. Oh dang, we do be on a train though! With the morning landscape passing by the window and the occasional rattle of the train bumping the carriage around, I try to focus my attention on the aging playing cards held in my hands. I'll raise you 5. She scrunches her face up and leans over to Lily conspiratorially, the two exchanging a few whispered words. Considering how often this has happened so far, I'm coming to doubt Hanako's grasp on how to play poker. Doesn't seem to disturb Lily's reading, though, her hands fitting over each page with only occasional corrections to account for the train's bumping and rocking. My collection of chess pieces that we're using as chips is steadily growing anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. Looking around us, our carriage is almost as empty as the station platform we'd waited for the train itself on. Only a handful of people can be seen, looking mostly like tourists and couples on holiday, which, to be fair, eventually will be us, assuming the best. Whoa! Air horns. While the two continue their less than clandestine strategizing, a small boy looks over the seats and stares at me. Hoping he doesn't begin to stare at Hanako, I simply give him a wave and a smile. Thankfully, he retreats back to his seat after finding me far too boring to waste his attention on. Thank goodness children are awful. I'll see you and raise you another 5. Damn, you got me. I fold. I've been bluffing and she caught me. Hanging my head, I push over a large portion of my winnings. Hanako looks absolutely delighted, and even if Lily keeps her attention focused on her reading material, I can see the smirk on her face. They're both extremely pleased. I see that smile. That's a good smile. For a moment, I try to work out what Lily's reading, but the cover is too faded to read beyond the point that Roman letters are on it. A pity. I can't read the braille above the printed title. What are you reading, Lily? The title looks like it's in English. That's right. It's And Then There Was None, an old British story. I can read it to you if you'd like. She extends the offer with a grin, obviously in jest. I think I'll pass, thanks. Her and her jest! After a seemingly endless trip, we finally reached the promised land of the Satao Summer House. Even after the train trip and walk-ups seemed to take forever. Despite my grumblings, though, I'd never have guessed the sight that would be in store for us once we traveled the long, deserted road. Looks more like a farmhouse than the everyday house I'd imagined. Small in size and surrounded by trees and bushes. An empty expanse of wheat fields and farming land can be seen as we walk up. The fencing only consists of rickety old wooden planks. Really drives home how far we'd gone from major city, and it's a sight that feels antithetical to the environment I grew up in. That's pretty much just average, everyday stuff for me. The only thing that doesn't surprise me is its Western styling. Wow, it's amazing out here. It's wonderful. That's nice to hear. Well, Akira may have said that she's kept the house in reasonable condition. I was worried that we might have different standards of reasonable. Looks like there isn't another soul for miles. Thought Akira would be the type to keep to the city. Lily furrows her brow in thought, seemingly recalling almost forgotten knowledge. From memory, there's a small town not too far ahead. Other than that, though, this is largely just old farmland. Akira and I stayed in our parents' house, which was in the nearest city for a while, but after that, after they left, we decided to move into a smaller, more easily maintainable house. To find a place like this in Japan nowadays, it's kind of anachronistic. Well, this town does have quite a bit of history. I looked down the street one last time before getting back to the task at hand. Shall we go in then? I'm parched! I require a beverage! It was a long walk to get here. Lily gives an enthusiastic nod, the three of us lugging our bags into the house. Look at that couch! As soon as we set foot inside, Hanako and I start looking around, taking in every detail of where we'll be staying for the next few days. All the artifacts of another's life stopped mid-motion are around the house, such as all the television guide lying beside the counter it was on, and pans in the adjoining kitchen still sitting on the stove. It's a strange feeling, really, as if we stepped into Akira's life for a brief moment before leaving in a couple of days just as we'd come. Of course, the more mundane reality is just that she hadn't cleaned up after herself that well. Well, where should we put our bags? I'll show Hanako our bedroom. You can put yours here if you like. I mean, I don't have the same bedroom as you two. Ha! Hanako flowers into a full blush as Lily takes her cheek in her hand. Oh my, how bold. You too. Hold on. If I'm to leave my bags here, where will I be sleeping? Well, seeing as we lack a guest bedroom. The convertible futon, huh? Sorry, Hisao. I sigh, lamenting my place on the bottom rung of sleeping location priorities. I guess there's no other choice. Hey man, that's just kind of how it's gonna have to be when you're the dude in a group of gal friends, you know? Benefits and downsides, it be what it be. Lily leaves to show Hanako to their bedroom, so I take a small tour of my surroundings after I drop my bag on the floor. The kitchen. Oh man, they got one of those roly things for the paper towel holder. Woo! I got one of those. The kitchen, just like the living room, is fairly modest. Did I just pop off over to paper towels? Okay. The rustic nature of the wooden furnishing drives home just how far we are from civilization. Returning to the living room, I decide to try out the television until they get back. With the touch of the remote, it immediately flickers to life, apparently set to a news channel. Almost flopping down from exhaustion rather than sitting, I lay back and watch. And watch. And watch. And then I take myself a nap. Everybody everywhere love to nap. Boom shakalaka ding ding ding. Hisao. Egots! I have been besieged by lady types. I quickly blink to wake myself up. Lily and Hanako have returned minus their bags. From the Hokkaido night sky, visible outside the windows, it looks like I drifted off to Slumberland. Look into the wall-mounted clock, it's already 10. You found the television then? It really does feel nice and homey here. I'm glad you like it. You were already out like a light when we came back after unpacking our things, so we didn't have the heart to wake you sooner. Judging from her giggle, I must sound funny when I sleep. I swiftly decide not to inquire. There's some dinner waiting for you in the kitchen. Hanako gives a deep yawn, only just remembering to cover her mouth at the last second. My, are you tired? I didn't get much sleep last night. I'm pretty tired too. It was a long walk up here, and it's getting late. If that's the case, I suppose we should retire for the night. Good night, Hisao. Good night. Night. With that, they quietly turn and walk back to their bedroom. Rubbing my eyes, I sigh. Wonder if I'll be able to get back to sleep after being woken up. I suppose I'll eat something and watch some more TV quietly before going to bed. That's the real way to live. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, I say. Hell yeah. Give me all that style. I demand it. Non-negotiable. Is he still sleeping? I think so. I'm not. I am, however, incredibly tired. It's getting late in the morning. I know that. He likely stayed up to watch television. I can hear it from our bedroom. Only because I couldn't get to sleep. Should we wake him? Don't do that, Hanako, please. No, we should leave him. I doubt he'd want to be woken early if he didn't get much sleep during the night. Thank you, Lily. Besides, he sounds so peaceful. It'd be a shame to wake him up when he's like this. Keep a straight face, Hisao. It is nice she cares so much, though. Hanako, could you go to the fridge and fish out what's needed to make lunch? All right. Just the vegetables and rice? That should be enough. We only need something simple, as we can eat in town later. Hanako's footsteps on the carpeted floor can be heard. Ooh, nice carpet. Moving away from the living room, as they do, I feel Lily's hand gently rest on my chest. It takes a titanic effort not to react, but something about her makes me think she knows I'm awake. A long silence passes. The only thought in my mind is of that gentle, outstretched hand laying upon my chest. After an indescribable amount of time, or indiscernible, rather, Lily withdraws her hand. Good morning, Hisao. How dare you know my secrets? Conceding defeat all too easily, I prop myself up and rub my eyes. How'd you know? Your breathing was off. Well, that makes sense. She couldn't have needed that long to work it out. Knowing her hearing, she likely knew before laying her hand on me. Then what was the game, lady? If you want to sleep more, you really should go to bed earlier. I heard the television going long into the night. Sorry about that. My medications have been interfering with my sleep for a while now. Even if I'm tired, I have trouble actually sleeping. I'm sorry for bringing it up, Hisao. I sigh. This is exactly the kind of thing I wish others wouldn't do. I mean, I don't... Yeah, no, Yeah, no. I think addressing it is the right call. Come on. You worry about me more than I do at times. It just means I have to sleep a bit longer. That's all. But still... I'd say that I look absolutely fine, but I guess that wouldn't have a lot of meaning for you. She gives a sigh of concentration before trailing off with an amused chuckle, giving up the point. If you say so. Please do take care of yourself, Hisao. Go on, Hanako could use some help. She moves to protest, but reluctantly acquiesces and disappears into the kitchen, her hand running along the smooth white walls as she walks. For a while, I sit and watch television in an attempt to wake myself a little more, but it's futile. I don't have anything better to do, so I follow Lily's lead. As I round the corner, I see Hanako and Lily's backs turned, quietly cutting food on the granite-colored counter. I'm temporarily engrossed as I watch Lily guiding the knife down carefully with a finger on the cabbage she's cutting. Each slice delivered slowly, but with precision. She seems a little slow, but considering that you can't see what she's doing, it's a small wonder she can cook at all, so why on earth would you even attempt to complain? My God! Let alone for both her and Hanako. Hi, Hanako. Lily, want any help? Is that Hisao? Ah! Oh, morning, Hisao. Lily jerks back in surprise before turning around, her yelp immediately drawing Hanako and me to her side. What's... A small trickle of scarlet falls downward from her pale fingertip, the knife cutting just deep enough to draw blood. With the television sound masking my footsteps, she must not have noticed me coming. To compensate for having to use touch to guide everything she does during cooking, she must need to pay extra attention. Lily! Oh, don't worry, Hanako, it's just a small wound. You should still get a Band-Aid on it, at least until it stops bleeding. First aid stuff would be in the bathroom, right? I think so. Will you be okay here, Hanako? I frown at how little heed she's paying to herself as Hanako gives a quick, almost automatic nod. It's fine. I can keep making lunch. An awkward silence regains as I set the bottle of antiseptic and box of Band-Aids on the side of the sink, Lily's finger held out for me to treat. The lid of the bottle comes off with a minimum of resistance, and the small ball of cotton I soak in the liquid stains a pale green. Okay, hold still. This'll probably hurt a bit. She gives a small nod as I take a hold of her hand to steady it. With all the tenderness I can muster, I gently bring the dampened wad to the small red line. Ah, what? I've barely touched it. Sorry. I give a sigh, both at her reaction and to settle my own nerves. Her pain tolerance is startlingly low. I would have told you to man up, but I can't really do that. As she gives a small giggle, I take advantage of her momentary distraction and gently press the cotton against her finger a few times. Thankfully, it's enough to do the job. We both settle somewhat as I bring the Band-Aid over the tip of her finger, covering the wound while making sure not to get it stuck to her fingernail. There, finished. You can move now. Taking her hand from mine, she gently clasps it in the other. Thank you. It's no problem. It's the least I can do after causing you to hurt yourself, after all. She lowers her head slightly out of the apology, absent-mindedly rubbing her hand in what seems to be embarrassment. I really don't mind. Her answer doesn't seem to make much sense, given that what happened is pretty clearly my fault. I can't help grimacing at her, despite the fact that her dainty smile still holds. She must not like being reminded of the limitations her lack of sight imposes on her. It's something I can't possibly fault her for. I've fallen prey to the same kind of feelings before, despite my condition not being nearly as ubiquitous in my life. Neither of us any the happier. We head back to the various smells of cooking food coming from the kitchen. It's a delightful situation, to say the very least. My goodness. I lay out the plates of food, steam slowly rising from the well-cooked rice and curry dishes, while Hanako lays out the cutlery. Knife one side, fork on the other. Western. How perfectly fitting for someone like Lily. As we take our seats, taking careful heed of the dark red tablecloth hanging below our knees, Lily emerges from the kitchen. In her hands are 3 glasses and a bottle of wine! As I recall our previous run-in with that devilish elixir, I hide my face in my palm. Alcohol? Seriously? She pauses as she reaches the table, a playful grin perched on her face. Akira specifically gave permission to take a bottle from her collection. Of course she did! Not only does she give alcohol to minors, she even lets them pilfer their own! The perfect model of a responsible adult, Akira is not. More to the point, though, is that this is hardly a meal deserving of alcohol. Literally nothing is deserving of that, but I'm trying to not be sassy about it. I'm starting to think Lily's the type to easily become hooked on things. That's not really the problem. I don't really have any qualms with it, but didn't you have a bad experience with it last time? Last time was likely due to drinking too much, so a single glass shouldn't prove a problem. Think of it as a learning experience. I can't recall many learning experiences that made me feel rotten before putting me to sleep, but I'll take your word for it. She dips an uninjured finger inside to feel the liquid level, the tip against the bottom as the liquid rises up. The white of her fingers almost seem to glow as the sunlight hits it, the delicate outline blurred and reflected by the glass. Her fingers are definitely longer than mine, the kind I think would be more suited to a pianist than a teacher. She'd likely have done well if she'd learned how to play. We quickly dig into our meal, forks and knives clattering against the plates. None of us are particularly eager to speak while eating, Lily altogether too reserved for such a thing. Hanako probably too shy to start conversation, and I too busy savoring the food. Such a pedestrian activity, eating together at a table. It seems so utterly normal, yet it makes me realize how long it's been since I've done something like this. Just the 3 of us sitting around a single table eating as if we were a malformed family. Maybe this trip, as far from everything as we are, was worth it. I mean, it's just nice to hang with them, I would imagine. It takes quite a long time, but eventually we all finish our surprisingly filling meal. The wine, thankfully, has little effect given we only had a glass or two each. I slump back into the seat, rubbing my stomach contentedly. I'm stuffed. Lily pats her mouth with a napkin twice, only twice, and with each evenly timed intervals in between. It's hard to tell sometimes whether how she acts is a well-trained routine or a well-rehearsed act. I think I must be as well. Did you like it, Hanako? It was nice. Now that we've all fed, shall we be off? Off? Where? Oh, you weren't privy to the discussion between Hanako and me earlier. I get the impression that she's having a subtle dig at my sleeping in. We'll be going into town nearby. I guess I should have expected two girls to take a holiday as an excuse to go shopping, no matter where on the planet they may be. I am interested to see more about the north, though, so this could only be a good thing. Sounds good. How long is the walk in, then? It's supposed to be around a mile to a mile and a half. Nearby, huh? Great. Just great. As we climb up the pass surrounded by trees and undergrowth, I watch Lily and Hanako walking ahead. The slight breeze all but whisks away the sound of Lily's cane gently tapping on the ground. I notice that Lily's since removed the band-aid now that the bleeding of her finger has stopped. A deep lung-filled breath of the fresh country air makes me wish all the harder that the air around home had been quite so clean. It can't have been half a mile, but I'm already working up a sweat. It isn't a pleasantly cool day, though, so I shouldn't be too hard on myself. Hey, Lily, how well do you know this town, anyway? Since I spent quite a few of my vacations here up until I entered Yamaku, I'd say I know it fairly well. We used to drive there once a weekend then. How I wish Akira was here to drive us now. I quickly take a moment to rub my hands a couple of times, staving off the oddly cold feeling in them. Did you like it up here? I'd say it was nice during winter, but as you can work out, summers get a little too hot for comfort. It's nice and quiet, at least. My family's real house is quite far south. When they left Japan, my parents gave it to Akira and me. Only Akira lives there now, after my moving into Yamaku. Well, quite certainly describes the place. Though lonely is how I'd put it. Other than the prophesized small town, there isn't another soul for miles around. Coming from a home nestled deep within the big city, it's certainly different. I think that if I'd not come to Yamaku, staying out in the country like this would be too much of a change to get used to. I'm more than used to it, because it's all I know. After getting accustomed to the school's isolation, though, the idea of living in a place such as this has become almost inviting. To be somewhere away from the hustle and bustle of the metropolitan centers. So, Hazal, have you ever been to Hokkaido before? Nah, I used to live down south, and we never had any field trips or holidays up this far. Well, it's a new experience for you, then. Yeah, it is. I'm surprised at how nice it feels here. How about you, Hanako? Hanako arrives. She shakes her head from side to side. She didn't swing her arms, though, so she's failing to do the Mario pretty exceptionally. It's my first time, too. As we continue walking, I begin to feel pins and needles in my legs. It's a little disturbing, given there's no reason for it to be happening. Could you two hold on a moment? I just need to... Is anything wrong? Nah, I've got pins and needles and... My vocal cords suddenly become taut as my chest tightens instantaneously. I quickly pull my upper arm over it, trying to quell the shot of pain spreading throughout my entire body. Hisao? Lily's face is only mildly concerned, not knowing the sight which Hanako's recoiling from. I'm fine. Just tired. I remove my arm from my chest and force myself to begin walking again. It seems to me like Hisao's heart condition is by far the single most relevant it's ever been in this story. And it's very concerning. It's just a minor heart flutter, so it'll pass like the others. It only takes a couple of steps before my body violently revolts against me, my legs suddenly beginning to give way underneath me and all my tension in my knees seeming to evaporated. Before I can react, they uselessly give way under my weight, leaving me only just enough time to brace myself and fall into all fours. God damn. As I look up to her, I realize my face is still taut with pain, only adding that much more to her worrying. Hisao? Hanako, tell me what's going on. Hanako, tell me. Hanako quickly moves to my side as Lily almost panics, having little clue as to exactly how bad a condition I'm in. While she stands there petrified, I lower my face and take a deep breath. I come to a realization that makes me endlessly irritated with my stupid self. With all the excitement of my new surroundings, I'd entirely neglected to take my medications last night or even this morning. Idiot, why would you do that? Taking another breath, the acute pain in my chest begins to die down as suddenly as it had arrived. Thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God, thank God. As it does, I become acutely aware of the sweat by now pouring off my face and the two scared girls around me. So, I'm fine, Lily. I'm fine. I screw up my brow in an effort to lever myself up. Hanako's arms quickly moving to catch me if I fall as I stumble a bit before regaining my balance. I look to Lily and Hanako, worry written on both of their faces. I feel awful. Utterly awful. I think we should go back. Realizing the futility of protesting, I look away in frustration. Fine. Oh, that has got to feel the worst. That has got to feel the worst. That sucks. I open my eyes groggily, completely bereft of energy. For a while, I simply lie down lifelessly, staring at the ceiling as I review the events of the morning in an attempt to organize my thoughts. Went to walk into town, my heart nearly gave way, we came back, I took my pills, I slept. I can only remember each period of time as a snapshot, but the timeline is clear enough. The memory of the girl's face as I struggle to stand is an unpleasant one, stinging my feelings harshly. You know, as terrifying as that is for Hisao, and, you know, obviously definitely the most scary it could possibly be, spare a thought for Lily, who was physically unable to understand what was going on in any way. My God. That had to have been terrifying. Hanako, too. Everybody had to have been scared. If I looked at the ceiling hard enough, I can imagine the tile edges and small dimples of the ceiling in the hospital. The fact alone is enough to make me sit up to try and pull myself together. I scratched the back of my disheveled hair, glancing around the room. Lily and Hanako are nowhere to be seen, and the television's turned off. The clock above it says it's pretty late in the afternoon. The noticeably reddened sky outside the window confirms it further. I turn to pick myself off the futon, swaying slightly as I put my arms out for balance. I suppose I better go look for the girls to see if they're all right. As I look out the window, I faintly see something in the distance. Straining my eyes, I can just make out the shape of a person's figure. Her long blonde hair swaying in the faint breeze makes her almost seem to melt into the bright yellow of the wheat field. Without a second thought, I leave the room to follow that lone apparition. The brightness of the setting sun assaults my freshly woken eyes, forcing me to avert them until they adjust. The long yellow strands of wheat brush against my legs as I wade through them, the densely grown field making it hard to advance. Regardless, my eyes stay fixed ahead, true to the solitary figure. Within minutes, I reach her, meters behind her turned back. Lily? She simply nods. Where's Hanako? She's in bed. She went to sleep after I calmed her down. She says it matter-of-factly and with as few words as possible, as if saying any more was strictly forbidden. There's something different about her. Her normally confident figure seems oddly fragile, her body offering no resistance to the breeze blowing her skirt. The strands of wheat sway from side to side with a deafening pause passes, the only sound being their rustling. As we stand in the field alone, I know what I have to ask. What's wrong, Lily? You're not acting like you usually do. Remember when I talked of my family, Hisao? Your family? I looked downwards in thought, sifting through my scattered memories. The event seems to leap ready to hand when I search for it, rising to the surface as soon as it was recalled. After Hanako's birthday party? She gives a single, simple nod. It was nice back then, you and I, celebrating with Hanako, simply sharing presents, talking, having fun together. It's almost as if we were a family. One small, misshapen family. We had the same thought. I thought that could just go on forever. Just the three of us, happily together. She takes a long breath, a slight shakiness to it, just barely audible through the moving air. Even if my family was so far away, as long as we were together, that was all I needed. I don't want to lose you, Hisao. I didn't even realize how afraid I was of losing someone else until today. I'm sorry, Lily. I know my body's weak, but even then I make the most stupid of mistakes. Don't apologize. Please don't apologize. Lily? She turns to face me, her pale cheeks stained with tears. One misguided step after another, she stumbles towards me, her arms held out in search of so much as a faint brush against me. My heart doesn't race nor pound as I step towards Lily, gently taking and steadying her in my arms as she quickly clutches to me, sobbing. With her face trembling against my shoulder, the next words from her mouth are the last I expected. Whoa. Well, damn, I can't do that justice at all. You know, honestly, even considering the situation and the circumstances, this is very sweet looking. Like, this is a very beautiful picture, too. My goodness. Don't go away, I beg of you. Never, ever go away. I love you, so please. So that's why she's been acting like this. That tender voice when I called her, her thoughtless concern of the slightest pain I might feel. After having been left in Japan without her family and with only Akira, Hanako, and me around, she was afraid of losing yet another person who was close to her. She was genuinely worried about me. It's a strange feeling, a mix of surprise and sorrow, yet also the deepest gratitude I think I've ever felt. The only reaction I can muster among my conflicting emotions is a calm sigh. You idiot. Sal? For a fleeting moment, I feel her body become still. The only movement to be felt is the calm afternoon breeze. I said it before, didn't I? It's only natural to feel concerned about those around you. I'm still here, and I'll always be here. Because I want to see you more each day. To share in your happiness. To support you in your sadness. But most of all, I'll still be here because I want to see your smile. Your true smile. A single gust of wind rustles the long strands of weed as second silence passes. Smile when you want to smile. Cry when you want to cry. I love you, Lily, so you don't have to hold back anymore. With that, her arms clutch my back as tightly as she can, her face buried beside mine. Her tears fall down my back as she cries unrestrainedly as the last of her resistance melts away. Hisao, Hisao, Hisao. I close my eyes and bring my head down to her shoulder, holding her shaking frame tightly. At least I was right. This definitely scared the hell out of her. It's okay, Lily. I'll never go away. I promise. We slowly walk back to the house, holding each other tightly as we take a seat inside. Lily leans her head onto my shoulder as I put my arm around her waist. Neither of us have any want to break the silence. With her eyes shut, it's hard to work out whether she's fallen asleep. Not that I mind. The warmth of her body leaning against me, the softness of her hand delicately held in mine. For a long, long time, we sit leaning against one another, sharing our warmth and feelings as night eventually begins to settle in. Lily's gentle, soft voice ends the silence. Thank you, Hisao. Thank you? For returning my feelings. Did you think I wouldn't? There was the possibility. I take a deep breath in thought. That much was only my fault. It's funny, actually. I was thinking of telling you about my own feelings sometime soon. I guess in that way, you saved me the effort. She raises her head a little and gives a tiny, amused giggle. I smile at how earnest it is, so girlish in its lightness. She collects herself soon afterward, her hair resting against my shoulder. Feeling a bit better? She gives a small nod. You're thoughtful, Hisao. That's why I like you. I'm sorry I'm like this. As much as I didn't want to make you concerned for me, I couldn't do anything to prevent it. Don't apologize for it. Please don't. Lily? Have I ever apologized for my blindness, even once? You can't help the way you were born, Hisao. There's no point in apologizing for who you are. She says this with surprising conviction. In the end, it was perhaps this mentality which spurred her to befriend me in such a short time, in addition to her motherly instincts. She did seem to become trusting very quickly, but I'd never questioned why. Now it seems obvious that she did so to help me as I went through one of the lowest points of my life. I moved to respond, but cut myself off as I feel her fingers run gently through my hair. I feel their soft and delicate touch moving downwards the trace to the contours of my face, her palm finally settling on my cheek. You're a beautiful person, Hisao. Please don't ever apologize for that. For a moment, I'm utterly speechless. I slowly bend my head down, placing a tender kiss on her light, voluminous, her real big hair. We're a couple of right old fools, aren't we? We are. After a long calm, she speaks again. Hisao? Yes? I wouldn't mind if you... I feel her hand tensing under mine, trembling slightly. My mouth opens, but try as I might, I can't formulate a response to her proposition. Lily. Before I can say another word, she slips her hand from under mine and tenderly holds the side of my face once more. Please? I give a peaceful smile, holding her hand against my cheek as I nod a single time. Okay. As I look into her eyes, she leans towards me. Her delicate lips touch mine as she guides herself with her hand. She breaks off not a second later, faintly smiling. I love you, Hisao. We kiss again, this time with both of us meeting the other. Well, the previous kiss was one of love. This is one of lust. Oh, my goodness. All right, so we're diving head first into that. I got this. Our tongues meeting and our breathing heavy. After precious seconds we part, both our faces well and truly flushed. Both of us bring our fingers to our lips in unison, recalling that fleeting feeling, rapidly becoming buried by both of our urges and bashfulness. Lily is the first to shift uncomfortably, though. What is it? Should we get more comfortable? Huh? Okay. Now that you mention it, this futon would be a bit too narrow to do much on. I'll be honest with you, I did not actually realize that this is the extent of what she was asking for. I thought it was just a kiss. All right. Considering the thoughts running through both of our minds, it's no small wonder one of us has any measure of foresight left. Where else is there to go? I take her hands and guide her sideways as I move, the brief and awkward dance ending with both of us tentatively sitting on the floor opposite each other. As I reach forward to pull her top up, she stops after she moves her hands to do the same. You're shaking. I pause for a moment, look at my hands. Sure enough, they're quivering slightly. Whether it's from nervousness or excitement, I do not know. I guess I am. So, you're as nervous as I am, then. I withdraw my hands and sigh, steadying myself. We have plenty of time, so there's no need to rush this. Sorry, it's my first time, so I'm a bit... She giggles shakily, all but confirming what I reasonably deduced by now. It's the same for me. I'm happy we could share this together. I match her smile twofold, leaning forward and taking her body in my arms as she reaches to hug me back. Love you, Lily. You already said that. I can't help grinning. Even in such a situation, she still has her wits about her. Breaking our embrace, we decide to take off our clothing. While it's easier this way, I don't doubt it's just an attempt to distract ourselves from our nerves. With slightly stiff hands, I begin to slide the first button out from my shirt. Once we remove the last of our clothes, we end up haphazardly piled behind us. My breath is taken by the sight in front of me. And y'all know what the cantaloupe of intercourse says. My goodness. My goodness. Whew. Good on them! I don't know what to say. After being woken by a sound, I open my eyes with a measure of reluctance. Turning my head to the left, I find the rain outside seeps against the windows loudly. Spray after wind-blown spray lashes against the glass as if trying its hardest to make up for the summer's previous heat. I sit up in the futon, holding the back of my neck to try and subdue the pain from my awkward sleeping position. By all accounts, I should be lamenting the turn in the weather, given that this is our last day here. The events of yesterday refuse to stop flooding my mind, though. It's something to think about! The feeling of holding Lily's crying body in my arms, the rush of lust and hormones that followed through as we spent the night together, seems almost futile to try and rationalize everything that happened. In an attempt to distract myself, I groan and lean over to retrieve my bag without standing. Pulling out one bottle after another, I take the daily regime's worth of pills from their containers and swallow them without further ado. It took a surprisingly short amount of time to get used to swallowing pills without water. That said, I suppose the same thing goes for getting used to living in a school for disabled students. Remembering Yamaku, I become all the more grateful for having the chance to get away, even if it's just for the shortest of times. I appreciate the chance to spend time alone with Lily and Hanako, away from the bustle of school life, even considering the latest complications. I never thought I'd say it, but the idea of living away from the city in a nice, tranquil area is inviting one. It's a thought that barely a year ago would have seemed simply ludicrous. A flash of pink, no doubt Hanako's gown, peeks from around the corner. Realizing I must look a sight since I've only just woken up, I slap the remaining pills into my mouth and run a hand through my hair. Good morning, Hisao. Go. I reply to her, completely forgetting that I am in the middle of swallowing a particularly large pill. Coughing and sputtering, I violently gag on it. Hisao. After sputtering loudly and tapping my chest a couple of times to force it down, I managed to recover. I'm fine. Sorry. Forgot I was swallowing. It's all good. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I hold my hand up, gesturing for Hanako to stop. I gagged. It's my fault. Morning, Hanako. She pauses a moment before bowing in reply. Staggering in behind Hanako is the familiar figure of Lily, also dressed in her pajamas. With her eyes full of sleep and her hair bedraggled, she's a sight to behold. Hi, Lily. Good morning, Hisao. For a while, a silence hangs in the air as neither of us know what to do, what with the things that we want and gone done did. Given what happened last night, we both have more than enough reason to be finding the situation awkward. Just how are we meant to react to meeting each other after something like that? The best course of action would probably be to talk to Lily alone to set things in order. I'll start making breakfast. Lily evidently catches on to my train of thought. I'll help. Hanako, could you set the table? She nods, her head disappearing into a cupboard as she quickly goes about her assigned task. I rub a little more sleep out of my eyes as I wander over to the fridge and take out some milk, and Lily grabs various brightly colored boxes from some of the lower cupboards on that side. Well, we make the rather bland-looking meal, but is no less special and good. My goodness, come on now. I whisper somewhat more quietly than usual. Knowing Lily's hearing, she won't have any trouble catching what I'm about to say. Are you okay, Lily? After last night? She gives a delicate nod, her expression weak. Though her tiredness surely plays a part, she seems genuinely unsure about what's happened between us and how to move ahead. I can't say I blame her, considering my feelings are the same. I'm sorry, Hisao, I wasn't thinking straight yesterday. I never stopped to consider you or Hanako, and I even went as far as... She's winding herself up. With her hands and voice both tightening, I give her a gentle bump to try and lighten up the situation. You don't have to apologize. I said I liked you as well, after all. But As her composure begins to falter, it becomes obvious there's no alternative. Turning to Lily, I gently embrace her tall frame. She offers no resistance at all, thankfully pulling back just from the edge of her emotions. Hanako arrives. Despite our reassuring embrace lasting only a matter of seconds, I notice Hanako wordlessly watching. The plate in her hand hovers inches above the table, her action halted midway by the sight. Who knows what that's going to be all about? The clatter of utensils against plates is the only sound to be heard as we silently eat. Whereas before only two of us may have been unsure of ourselves, the entire situation has changed. After weeks of blissful friendship, whiling away the days with shared meals and chatter with little meaning, the relationship of Lily and me, that of all of us, has irreversibly changed. I can't take this. Lily. She solemnly nods, gently laying her spoon onto the plate in front of her. Neither of us knows exactly how we regard each other, let alone how Hanako would view us. This might seem abrupt, but I've confessed to Hisao. For a moment, Hanako looks almost confused. Precisely the reaction I'd thought she would have. She eventually nods, her spoon still in her mouth as she does. Did you accept? I did. She gives a smile, so large and so earnest I find myself blushing. I think it's the brightest I've ever seen her expression look. Then I'm happy. I'm really, really happy. I'm sorry for not telling you anything about it before. Things have been... Hanako shakes her head from side to side empathetically, apparently forgetting in her rush that Lily couldn't possibly notice. She begins fiddling with her fingers, looking a little more nervous than she did before. To be honest, I began to think you might like each other a while ago. At first, I didn't really know what to think about it, but I decided in the end that if my friends are happy, then I'm happy. I was really glad to have another friend when we met Hisao, so you finding love through him is even better, right? A feeling of relief at her acceptance of our relationship falls over me like a wave. The same happens to Lily, judging by her expression. Thank you, Hanako. I really appreciate you being so understanding. Lily's voice still sounds slightly apologetic, or at least unsure. This doesn't escape Hanako, who appears lost in thought for a few moments before turning to me. Hisao, do you mind if Lily and I go outside for a bit? No, feel free. Hanako? Hanako gets up from her seat, taking Lily's hand and almost dragging her from the table in her excitement. Considering Lily's typically slow and steady pace, Hanako's haste makes her footing awkward and she almost loses balance a couple of times. It's a pretty amusing sight, leaving me wordless as I watch them disappear out the door. It's only now that I realize the rain stopped, being replaced by a sky seemingly all the more vivid and bright to make up for the morning's drab gray expanse. Thanks for that weather! For Hanako, this must be a pretty big revelation. Lily and I are really the only people she associates with, almost as if we were parents in her own stead. I suppose that might well be the best way to describe the relationship we share. A father, mother, and daughter all playing around in our little make-believe family as if it could last forever. Might be a strange dynamic, and one that certainly can't last for long, but maybe just for this one small moment it's okay. As I stand from the table and go to join Lily and Hanako in the fields outside, I nod to myself in affirmation. This one small moment of happiness, no matter how brief, will last with me, with all of us forever. That's really nice. Submerged deep in the hot water, I let a drawn-out sigh escape my lips. The feeling of seemingly every muscle in my body relaxing is euphoric. I have no idea how long it's been since I had a genuine hot bath, but right now I can hardly be bothered trying to remember. Maybe I'm giving the simple fact that for once I get to have a real bath more credit than it's due. The chance to just calm down, allow myself to unwind, and have some time to myself is a welcome one. Hanako, Lily, and I wander around outside, exploring the extent of the surprisingly large tract of land surrounding the house. Gotta get that wheat! Gotta make that bread! Get some sandwich! Then we spend the majority of the afternoon resting, watching television, reading, and playing cards. It may not have been the most exciting finale to the trip, but such tranquil peacefulness is something to savor. Even after we return to school tomorrow, I think I'll remember this little house in Hokkaido for a long time. Hokkaido? I don't know. It's a pity we only have a couple more hours to spend here before we going to get to the train back. All I can do is yawn contentedly while I watch the steam slowly rising from the clear water's placid surface, my eyes eventually locking onto the ceiling. Our exams are imminent. I've barely studied at all for them. That is a mild problem to say. Zeberminamim. Let me tell you. On top of that, I don't even know what I'll do after graduation. Passing exams is all well and good, but to what end? And now of all times, I'm getting into a relationship. Go figure. What the hell am I doing? I guess I shouldn't think like that. What's done is done, and maybe this could be viewed as just another aspect of my new life that I'm working on. I enjoy being with Lily, and there's more to life than school and a career, after all. Like Lily. She's just delightful in general. As I busily attempt to rationalize all that's happened, I hear a series of raps on the door. I pick myself up and sit upright, trying to figure out the source. 3, no more, no less, light yet assertive in their tapping, and timed regularly enough to tune a metronome. I'd be extremely surprised if it wasn't Lily. May I come in? Yeah, it's Lily. I'm still in the math. I'll be out in a sec. I know. The voice coming from the other side of the door freezes me. After a second's thought, I rest on the side of the bath and let my arms dangle over the side. Despite trying my best to play it off, I can't help letting my mind wander. Sure. Come in. Hello there. With that, she opens the door, slowly walking into the room and closing it behind her. She looks oddly calm, countering my racing heart. To be fair, she is blind. Hey, Lily. Well, that's a thing to ask now, isn't it? Do you mind if I take a bath with you? I don't mind. Go ahead. He was surprisingly able to just say, yeah, sure, how about it? With a small nod, she begins to lift her sweater off her shoulders, baring her chest little by little. I could do that for you if you'd like. Refused. Why? Her face shows she's not still overly comfortable with letting me attend to her. I can't say I blame her. She continues undressing her. I wasn't expecting to have this happen a second time so fast. She continues undressing her shirt and skirt, falling to the floor and leaving her in her at least brown panties. Eventually, she stands bare in the center of the room. Are those cuttlefish? Yeah, I guess they would be a cuttlin, wouldn't they? It was a whiteout. Oh my good golly gosh. Okay, well. After a chaotic dash to the station and finding our seats on the otherwise deserted carriage, we promptly crashed. Looking at the time, come to close to midnight, it's a little surprise that few have taken this particular train. Hanako was fast asleep on Lily's shoulder, and I could only barely muster the energy to stay awake. The excitement we had a while ago probably didn't help. I'd probably be pretty depressed about going back to school if my brain was actually working. As it is, yeah, no, that's not going to be a thing for a while. You're gonna be riding that one for a few days, I imagine. As it is, though, the sight of the nighttime scenery scrolling by is surprisingly beautiful. My loud yawn is nearly wholly drowned out by the clacking of the train tracks and the old carriages rattling. I'm so tired. And whose fault is that, Hisao? She really does toe the line between insulting and amusing sometimes, though I managed to wring out a weary smile. I look back out the window with my reflection just visible in the clear pane. Truth be told, she's perfectly correct. If it weren't for that little interlude a few hours ago, both of us would have had a lot more energy. On top of that, we both had to take another bath, very nearly making us late for the train's departure. Yeah, it was mine. Still, getting into a bath with a guy is a dangerous thing to do. Evidently. Sorry, I guess I took advantage of the situation back there. Well, I didn't exactly hate it. She be blushing! As she trails off, I look back to her. Her eyes narrow as I see her slightly reddened cheeks and small grin. Her mind obviously elsewhere. I feel like that had to have been the intended goal. Say it. I knew the possibility of it happening was there. I knew it. You're just as dirty-minded as I am. She quickly coughs into her free hand, making her disapproval crystal clear. That's a rather crude way of putting it. Oh, and you would suggest? I merely have a healthy adolescent sex drive. That is a way of putting it. So in other words, dirty-minded. Almost seeming to sense the moment, Hanako mumbles quietly as she furrows her brow in Lily's lap. Lily's look of disapproval melts away as she gently smiles and strokes her hand on Hanako's long dark hair. All I can do is watch and smile. If someone were to ask me when I fell in love with her, I wouldn't be able to answer. The best I'd be able to come up with is it just happened at some point, but I didn't realize it. If someone were to ask me why I love her, though, then I could answer much more easily. You really love Hanako, don't you? She gives a deep nod, smiling warmly. It's a pity we have to return to school. She seemed to relax so much while we were all away. I mean... I'm gonna go with talk about Hanako? I don't see why that's a bad idea. I wouldn't worry. Hanako's been gaining confidence thanks to you, at least for as long as I've known you two. She gives a self-deprecating sigh. I think I merely provided her with company and support. Since she came to know you, she's opened up much more, even to me. I get the feeling she's understating her influence on Hanako, especially given that before the two came to know each other, Hanako had no friends to speak of. The friends I had in my previous school fulfilled what I'd expected of them, for the most part simply being there for idle chatter. But in Hanako and Lily, there really feels to be more to their relationship. A part of me envies it, but another can't ignore the fact that the school year will eventually end. After graduation, I really have no idea what Hanako will do. The trip has shown me just how much we've all come to depend on one another. Indeed, we're all going to have to make decisions. Maybe that's the reason why, despite a return to school also heralding a return to the normalcy of everyday life, I can't help feeling a little restless. On the bright side, it won't take long for the summer holidays to arrive after our exams are finished. We can come back here during the summer holidays if you want. For a moment, she thinks on the notion, her face becoming somewhat distant. I can only guess she's reflecting on all that's happened here. That would be good, I think. I nod, approvingly, smiling at her. Summer, together with Lily. This idea seems like the perfect way to spend a holiday. This story has been absurdly sweet, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. Act 4 future, called it! Like, actually, factually, this is a very, very heartwarming tale. I really enjoy it. After the excitement of our trip to Hokkaido, it seems strange to be right back to the usual daily routine so soon, as you do. Indeed, it feels like a normal day, the same as any other. Well, that's what I'd like to think anyway. To tell the truth, the atmosphere of this entire class, now the entire school has changed. While an undercurrent of subdued trepidation had previously pervaded the class, now with the exams are in sight, it's boiled over to the frantic studying rarely seen otherwise. One day until exams start, it's horrific, really, that instead of studying, we went and wasted our trip up north. We were such model students, too. You didn't waste it, you got a girlfriend! That's a great use of time! Also, Misha's here. That's also good! Glancing around the class, even the bubbly, ever-energetic Misha seemed oddly deflated. She sits at her desk, nervously chewing a pen while Muto lectures from the front of the class. Wait, on closer inspection, I do believe she's eating it. She does that sometimes. Tearing my eyes from the sorry spectacle, I turn my attention elsewhere. Hanako sits frantically scribbling in her notebook. Her face is mere inches away from the page, seemingly trying to record every word that leaves Muto's mouth. Shizune as well. Shizune. Cool as a cucumber and 5 times as... salty. I don't know. She sits diligently, taking notes with her attention wholly focused on the front of the class. Truth be told, it's what I should be doing as well, if not for the fact that I feel like I had a pretty good handle on what's been covered already, and why am I only just this exact moment realizing? Shizune is... I think she's the only deaf person in this class. Lectures literally have no value whatsoever to her in here. It's only stuff written on the blackboard. Shouldn't she be in a more specialized class? You know, I mean, like, Lily's in a room full of students with bad eyes. Wouldn't a classroom full of deaf or very nearly deaf students with a sign language using teacher make a lot more sense? Why have I never questioned that? Huh. Truth be told, it's what I should be doing as well, if not for the fact that I feel like I have a pretty good handle on what's being covered already. Wonder how Lily's doing. While she does have a good head on her, she has plenty on her plate, unlike me. Her class representative duties, taking care of Hanako, her other social contacts, her extra English studies. That girl really does take on a lot. That just be the way the Lily do! The lunchtime bell begins a sigh of relief from the entire class, Muto being no exception. I get the feeling he much prefers the more laid-back atmosphere of his normal classes to the frantic pace of exam preparation we're subjected to right now. Ichan! Help me! I lower my eyelids to half-mast, making my clear intention of doing quite the opposite. Help me, help me, help me. Not going well? Hee-chan's gonna be fine, but I think I might die. Am I gonna die, Hee-chan? Will you let me die from all this work? How maudlin. Given that she's neither the brightest student in the class nor the most diligent, it isn't quite surprising that she's finding it hard to cope with the workload. Sorry, Misha, but I got my own work to do. I thought you and Shizune would be studying together over the long weekend anyway. Studying's too boring to waste a holiday on, Hee-chan. Shopping together was much more fun, wasn't it, Hee-chan? It's only now that I realize Shizune's been looking over to us, and that Misha's arms have been moving likely all this time. I must really be zoned out to not have noticed. What is it with girls and shopping, anyway? Even Lily and Hanako have dragged me out with them a couple times. But you went anyway? It's so rare to see a guy like that likes going shopping. Hey, I like stuff. I like owning stuff and purchasing stuff. That's fun. Well, my role should probably be best described as pack mule. I can't say I share your enthusiasm about the experience. Back to the exams. You studied after you got back from the days off, didn't you, Shizune? She signed something. Of course, Hee-chan. It's only sensible to study in the days before. Misha makes it sound vaguely similar to a dying cow as she realizes her folly and unceremoniously flops onto her desk, betrayed even by her best friend. Judging from Suzune's quite frustrated look at Misha, he's probably told her to study as she did. Don't worry, you can still gain some grades if you start studying now. Maybe. Misha doesn't seem overly amused. Seems the bubbly balloon of everlasting cheerfulness has been cruelly popped. Shizune's signing goes unnoticed by the moping Misha, earning her a quick poke in the shoulder. It takes barely a moment for Misha to get back into form. Oh, so what did you do over the weekend, Hee-chan? Just took a trip up north with Lily and Hanako. It was pretty nice. I see, both of them narrowing their eyes at me, their minds surly in the gutter. The fact that their suspicions are founded makes the situation all the more awkward. We just studied and went sightseeing. There's nothing more to it. After such a flagrant lie, I realized that it must not have been the best step considering Shizune's connections and her total lack of restraint when it comes to questioning someone she suspects of telling untruths. I really have no idea of how she's going to take it, but she'll find out eventually anyway. It isn't as if it's really her business whom I date in any case. And yes, Lily and I are going out now. While Misha receives the news with an enthusiastic smile, Shizune gives a look of mild surprise, somewhat masked by her cool demeanor. Whoever you date is your business. I hope you two go well together. Misha gives a look that says this is the most quarter I could possibly receive on the matter. It's all I wanted, really. After she says this, though, Shizune begins to sign something else, then stops herself and shakes her head at Misha to prevent her from translating. Normally, I'd think this strange enough, but the awkward, casual wave Shizune gives before walking off with Misha in tow adds to my confusion. Shizune is hardly the kind of person to pull a punch on or communicate without forethought. I shrugged my shoulders at the duo's odd behavior and looked towards Hanako's desk, but seeing that her chair is empty, she was definitely here before, so I guess she didn't feel like waiting. I'll grab some food alone then. After going to do that, walking down the hallway to the unused room that's become a second home to 3 students in particular, I mournfully looked down at the plastic-wrapped salad roll and juice box in my hand. The cafeteria's food is really unappetizing. Maybe I'll consider this my penance for my recent indiscretions. Opening the door, I noticed one less quiet figure than I expected. It's just a Lily. It's strange. Despite having known Lily for months, I can't help thinking back to the first time I'd opened this door and saw her silently sitting in the sunlight. Living in the moonlight, having a wonderful time. Just as she did then, she slowly opens her eyes, unmoving as they are, and calmly addresses me. Good morning, Hisao. It's afternoon, I think. Has Hanako been around? She skittered out of class without me even noticing. Lily cradles her cheek thoughtfully as I take a seat, my bag taking its place against the closest leg of the table and my unsatisfying meal neatly set out in front of me. She did appear, for a time. She said she had to study for the upcoming exams and left for the library. We find ourselves not entirely believing her words. Well, at least her intentions are in the right place. She is sweet, but she needn't go this far to let us have our space. I might talk to her about it sometime. Probably for the best. She's gonna feel like she needs to, stay away. Gonna have to work on that. For a while, we quietly eat our meals. Lily elegantly nibbling on her sandwiches and sipping her tea as I eat what tastes like a garden sandwiched in dry dough. That sounds dope. The atmosphere feels slightly strained, neither of us knowing quite what to say to each other now that our small talk has dried up. Eventually, we both finish our food, with no conversation forthcoming for quite some time. Eventually, though, Lily's soft voice breaks the silence. A lot happened back there, didn't it? Again, silence. With both our minds on the same topic, though, I think I have my feelings on that sorted out. I know everything happened in kind of a hurry, but I don't regret anything that happened in Akiado. Not one thing. Hisao? Slightly tense, I take her hands in mine, half to feel her, half to settle my own nerves. I stand by my words back there, Lily. I love you and I won't leave you. I only wish for you to think the same. She silently reflects for a long time, which feels like an eternity. Her revere comes to an end as she takes one hand from mine, placing it over them as she leans her body forwards and stands out of her chair. After a moment's hesitation, her face slightly pensive, her lips meet mine for a brief moment. My mind feels as if it briefly stopped at that moment, barely registering Lily sitting back in her chair and smiling back at me with ever so slightly reddened cheeks. Hearing that makes me very happy, Hisao. I would be glad to stay with you. Maybe it would be good to slow things down a bit compared to before. We still have school, after all, and our exams. She gives a mischievous giggle, which proves to be contagious. That might be a good idea, indeed. Do you think you'll fare well in your exams? It's only one day until they arrive, as you say. I probably should have studied more, but I think I got a good enough head to manage. That said, I had to bat off Misha and Shizune. Is your class as worried about the exams as mine? She lets out an exasperated sigh, all but confirming it. I'm thankful for the atmosphere becoming a bit lighter. I think so. I've already been asked for help by 2 of my classmates, and there'll no doubt be more. Think of it as your first training in becoming a teacher, maybe. And that's probably a good way of thinking of it. On that note, how are you faring in your English studies? I remember it was far from your strongest subject, and the few sentences you memorized to speak to my mother aren't likely to help. Damn right on the mark. You got me. If you don't mind, would you be able to possibly help in that regard, please? It would be my pleasure to help you, Hisao. But in exchange... She lowers her eyebrows at me, her coquettish nature tentatively coming to the fore. No problem at all. You'd probably be better off with some help in your studies, though. She beams a smile at me, one of girlish victory that nearly makes me blush. I get the feeling she's aware of how to use her face to twist my judgment, so I should probably be more on guard. Here and now, though, a study group seems like an expedient way for both of us to show her up our more lacking skills. The school bell rings out, reminding us the time isn't going to stand still. Huh, lunchtime's over already. Sure is easy to lose track of time here. This room's so far from the other clubs and activities, not much sound can reach us. That's probably most of the reason why. A place far from all the others, alone with one person whom she loves. As Lily stands and collects her bag and cane, my thoughts are cast back to the time we spent in Hokkaido, and I really wish they'd stop making me say that word because I know I'm saying it wrong. Ah, before I go, Akira and I are having a homecoming party in my room tomorrow. Will you be able to come? And back again. My schedule is free, so I should be able to make enough room in my study to make it. Good to hear, Hisao. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're back from Scotland. Once exams are over, we should have some time to ourselves. Holidays start soon after, too. We can start the holidays with Tanabata then, just as we promised at the school festival. She brings her hand to her cheek and laughs slightly nervously, recalling the event as I silently thank myself for managing to remember. Seems odd to see her react in such a way, though it's not like I never saw her embarrassed before. I'd better be going. Farewell, Hisao. Bye. Whether it's out of habit or just sudden, stubborn desire for one small fragment of normality, I hold my hand up in farewell just as I always do. At least I'm consciously aware that I'm doing it now. I think I'm beginning to see a bigger picture than I ever have before, not only with Lily, but also of my life ahead. The chains of my past are finally breaking. Ain't that just delightful? Things are going a little too well, though, so I'm deeply concerned in that regard.